Hello and welcome to another Demis Hellen tutorial. In this video we're going to look at ways to develop chords, and it's been around forever, since music began. Things like triads, and then using like the 5th and 7th notes as focus notes for your chords. So I'm just going to explain that really. So as you can see, we're going to use this section here, so we're going to ignore these bits over here. We've got 3 chords, and the bass notes are just duplicated apart from this one here, and I'll explain that in a second. But we've got 2 note chords, so again, if we listen. Okay, so if you wanted that to be more literal, that would be that chord, because the root note is the F, and that is the F, and that's the same spacing, and you get this sound. Okay, so we're going to make it easier by leaving it like that. Alright, so we have 2 note chords, and we're going to make triads. So I'm just going to select these top notes, and drag them up, and we've got our triads. We've got no black notes, we're just using all white notes, so we're just using the standard scales, and we have our triad chords here. So just to quickly explain, if you are to play a triad on the white notes only, you're going to get basically a 1 white note gap between each note. As you can see, 1 white note between each. Plenty of black ones, but just 1 white note between. That gives you your triad, and that now sounds like this. And it gives you a little bit more of an emotion in your chord structure, whereas before we had this. And I can't remember my redo command here. Now we have this. Okay, so first things first, I'm just going to get rid of that. You can see now that the emotion has started to come out of the chords just by adding that 3rd note, and that's all standard stuff. You hear musicians doing that all the time, and that is like the first steps to it. Okay, so I'm just going to go over to this one. So this is the original idea here. This one is the one with the 3rd note on. So that is called the 5th. And why is it called the 5th? If you look from the 1st note and count white notes only, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's the 5th note in the sequence. So a common practice here is to add a 7th note. So we'll edit this one here. Get rid of that one. Okay, so adding a 7th note would be, so this is 5, 6, 7. So if we add D onto that one, 1 note, G, sorry, and then D, and then E. As you can see, again, there are only 1 note gaps. So now you get this really emotion-driven chord, whereas before we had this. And then we added a little bit more harmonisation by adding the 5th. And if we add the 7th, it sounds so much more lush. Alright, so I've just duplicated again, and we'll go to this one. So how can we make this more interesting? Well, let's have a look. So we can add a 9th in, so we could go 8, 9 and add the next note in the sequence. Let's just see what it sounds like. So we'll add the 9th in. Oh. Okay, so now we've got 1 note gap between the 7th and the 9th, so you can see the trend that's happening here. So you get a bit more of a discorded feel. And if you were wanting to use 5 notes in, you could probably get away with duplicating the bottom notes. So I don't like the first 2 chords, to be honest. So we start on an A, so let's finish on an A, let's finish on an E, and I did like the last chord. So now we have... Sounds nice. Let's try it with the F. Sounds a bit doesn't sound right. See, it sounds nice, but it sounds like it's got somewhere else to go. It's not resolved. Okay, and we'll leave that as it is, and we'll duplicate again so you can just see the progression of the chords. I like the first two, don't like the last one, so I'm either going to raise it to an A to match the second note, so just keeping it in the same pattern, or I'm just going to get rid of it and just have 4 notes on the last chord. So let's try it on A. So that gives it a nice resolve, but it wants to go somewhere, but it sounds like you've completed the chord. Whereas down here, it's almost like a question. It's like saying, well, where do you want to go next? Whereas this one suggests like it's answering this one. This is where I want to go. So you can hear in the tone that the music is actually talking to the person that is listening. And if you go that deep, you can understand music a little bit more in terms of emotion. So I'm happy with that for now. How can we now make that even more interesting? So we can do inversions. We've already doubled the original note here, as you can see. So I'm going to take the second notes of each one. Apart from this one, I'm going to take the F. Okay? In fact, we're going to keep it in the middle. So we've got this one, which is second. Can't use the second, and I don't want to use the bottom here, so let's take the third. Okay, and I'm just going to transpose them up 1 octave, so they're exactly the same note, but 1 octave above. And if you're on Cubase, just hold Shift and press the up arrow or down arrow to shift octaves. So now we have this. And before, we had this. So there's a lot of top-end detail on these two chords, but this one seems to miss out. So if we just transpose just that one up, it has less travel time here from this A to the G and back to the A. Or we can have, like we had before, those selected up there. The only reason I didn't choose the second here is because we've already repeated it here on the top. And that sounds more resolved on the last chord. And it's starting to space the melody out, so you can see what's happening here. If I was to also transpose the next notes in the sequence up, we've created a gap. And this is where your vocal line can sit, your melody line. You've created a physical gap in your music structure. And that gives you that nice ting at the end. So if you didn't want that to be so prominent, because all the rest aren't that prominent, you could have that in the original place. Much better there. So I think we've got our chord structure. We've kept the gap here and it's just a bit narrow, but we've got the gap flowing through the middle to give obviously room for the melodies to be put in. So what else can you do in terms of chord structures? How can you make that even better? Now if you was to work with the triad, so let's just get rid of that one because we've already got it here. Yes, we have. If we was to take the triad, I'll leave a gap here so we can see that we are onto something different. If you just want to work with 3 notes, just take the middle ones, transpose them up 1 so you've got nice open chords, and that gives you room to thread strings in between. There's all sorts of things that you can do and reasons, but this gives it a more area feel. So initially it sounds like this. Let's take the second note of each one and transpose it up 1. It sounds really effective. It's giving that airy feeling. It doesn't sound claustrophobic. The notes don't sound too grouped together and mushy. And then you can take the root notes can just transpose them up 2 octaves. And you've got this really nice open airy chord. Having the bass notes right on the top for the melody idea really does give some edge to your track. So, doesn't sound too great in that occasion, so we could just go to a G and mimic the second note here. Or we could just double up the A again. Sounds really nice. It sounds like it's an entirely new note when in fact it's already happened here. It's making this chord sound totally different. And that is what I call open air chords. I use that typically in my orchestral side of things. So I'd have the strings flow in here with a nice open chord structure, and then I can put another set of strings in between to give it real, just give it some density and some flow. It makes everything sound that little bit better, and it gives it its own space in the musical spectrum. So that has just taken not too long, to be honest, to develop a 2-note chord into a 3-note. So just to recap, we are using white notes only, and to make that a triad from the example, we have just followed the rule here of 1 note between each one. So 1 white note is the next note, and then to get the next one, miss one and put another one, and you get in your first, second, third, fifth note, and then if you want, put your 9th in there as well. So that is all for how to build your melodies. We just deleted that then. What I'll do is I'll put this in the description to download. You can just head over straight to my website and get these MIDI files to mess around with if you want to use it in your trance productions or something chill out, because it sounds like you could really chill to something like this in strings. So that is concluding how to just build the trance elements, the chord elements, just from a 2-note chord right up to using 4 and 5 notes. And that transposes well into arpeggios, all sorts. So before I go, I'll give you an example of the arpeggio here with this one, and we'll load a different preset. So I'm just going to load my Transpire preset, so it's available on the link on screen now. You can get that from my website. And if you use the link in the description, in that link that's just appeared on screen, you can get 10% off today. So we're going to use an arpeggio, so you know it's good. Woody. Let's use Woody. So you get some really nice effects. And if you was to take the top notes off, or if you just had it as a triad, get rid of the bass. There's so many uses to get everything sounding just like tip-top in your production. So that is how to develop chords on a very... I wouldn't say it's a simple level, but an easy level to understand. If you found it easy and you have any questions, if it wasn't too easy, let me know in the comments below. Hit the like button if you think it deserves a like as well. And finally, subscribe and hit the bell icon to see my uploads first and be first to get dibs on the comments. So, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.